All right, this week's Torah portion, Torah reading, is called Vayechi. It's the last Torah chapter in the book of Genesis. And we've already learned about some pretty amazing figures in the history of the world. We learned about Adam. We learned about Noah, and then we start Judaism with Avram, Yitzchak, and finally Yaakov. And Yaakov has a son, has 12 sons, but one of them is called Yosef. And Yosef goes down to Egypt, becomes the king of Egypt, and there's a big famine, and all the Jews go down to Egypt. Yaakov and his whole family, they all go down to Egypt. And we're gonna see next week that they all get trapped there, and the Jewish people become slaves in Egypt. It says for 210 years, and then they get out with great miracles, and that begins Torah Judaism. Before we had the essence of Judaism, what Judaism is, the spirit of Judaism, the attitude of Judaism, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, to worship only the creator of the universe, to take orders from the creator of the universe, to be partners with the creator of the universe, to make the universe better, to improve the world. That's what Judaism is, improving the world. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they came to this on their own, how to improve the world. And when the Torah was given, that's going to be next week, then the Jews really became responsible. They really became responsible to God. They got all the commandments and they got all the directions of how to do it. Okay, but still we're now before the Torah is given. And now we're more concentrating on attitude. Who is this God that we are serving? It's very possible to do what it says in the Torah and forget about the giver of the Torah. Forget about the giver of the Torah. So that's what we're learning about now. What type of an attitude is a Jew supposed to have? And because the Jews are they're here to save the whole world. The Jews are here to educate the whole world as to what God is. That's going to be the idea of Moshiach. Moshiach is going to come, and there's not going to be any more of these false religions. We talked about that a lot of time. There won't be any more, no more Christianity, no more Muslim, Islam, no more Buddhism, Hinduism, etc. Everyone will worship only the creator of the universe according to the Torah, 7 Noahide commandments. That's what the Torah for the non-Jews. But the attitude for serving God is going to be the same. The non-Jews, it says, only have basically 7 commandments. There's much more than that, really. But it's called 7 commandments. And the Jews have what's called 613 commandments. There's much more than that also. But it's called 613 commandments. So the number of commandments and also the nature of the commandments are different. But the attitude is the same. There's one God, same God creates us as creates everybody else, creates the Jews, creates the non-Jews, creates the animals, the trees, the plants, the rocks, creates the stars and the angels. One God, the creator. And we're supposed to not just only worship him, but also have an attitude, have love. Have to have love of the creator. Have to have gratitude to the creator. Gratitude to the creator. Surrender to the creator. Awe of the creator. Fear of the creator. Our relationship is supposed to be to the creator. Oh, that's what Abraham brought into the world. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay. That's the general attitude. But then there's what we call the different tribes of the Jewish people. For instance, the 4 sons of Leah, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehudah. That's more details. How to come to this attitude of love, fear, awe, faith in the creator of the universe alone for every human being. So this is really relevant to every human being, what we're really learning now. But in here, there's also a big difference. The Jewish people are different from everybody else. The Jewish people are different. The Jewish people have a natural love for God. They have a natural love for God. Every Jew has it. It's hidden. It's concealed. You can deny it. You can oppose it. You can be not aware of it, which that's most of the case now. But every Jew has this hidden love. Similarly, every Jew has a hidden fear of God, fear of doing the wrong thing. Every Jew has a natural gratitude to God. And that's sort of what we're going to learn over here about this aspect of gratitude and how to achieve it. How to achieve it. In fact, that's the name Jew. Where does a Jew come from? Jew comes from the word Yehudi. Yehudi is from the tribe of yehudah. Yehudah. There's different reasons that are given, but it says in the Gemara, in the Talmud, also in Megillah, that a Jew is someone who denies idolatry. That's a Jew. A Jew is someone who denies idolatry. In other words, he opposes, he defies, rejects worshiping anything other than the Creator himself. No matter how much benefit there is in it, right? Jews worship the golden calf. The worshiping of the golden calf is a denial of their Judaism. I mean, it didn't mean that they're not Jews, but it means that they're not revealing their Jewishness. Like a person that acts like a dog, right? He goes crazy, acts like a dog. And so he's still a human being, but he's denied his humanness, right? He's not expressing his human. Same thing, a Jew that worships idolatry, as he's denying his Jewishness. What is a Jew? That's yehudah. So that's what we're going to learn now. Let's go. This is the blessing. Now, in this week's Torah portion, Jacob gathers together all of his sons, and each one of his sons is going to be one of the tribes of Israel. It's going to develop into one of the tribes of Israel. So each one of his sons, and he gives each one a special blessing. Each one he gives a special blessing. So now we're going to deal especially with the blessing of Yehudah and Reuven. We're going to see. Let's go. One second. Let me just. Yes. Yehudah ata. You are Yehudah. Yehudah was the fourth son that was born to Leah, right? Yoducha achecha, your brothers will surrender to you. They will admit to you. They will be thankful to you. Whatever. From Yehudah is going to come Moshiach. So that's all the kings from Israel. The kings of it, they were called Yehudah. They all came from Yehudah. Mashiach will come from Yehudah. King David came from Yehudah. Hine Yehudah Nikra. Yehudah is called. Who gave the name? Leah. Leah gave the name of Yehudah. She called the names of her sons. So the first one she called Reuven, second one Shimon and Levi, and the fourth son she gave was Yehudah. Apam Odeh. This time I will give thanks. For who? Bechinas Hodaya. Okay, how does this reflect in the soul of every single human being, especially in the Jews? Let's take the Jews first. How does this reflect in the soul of every Jew? It's there. This is Hodaya. This is the level of surrender, gratitude to God, which is in every single Jewish soul. Like we say, Modiam anachnu lach. Like we say, we surrender ourselves to you, God. We are grateful to you. We are beholding to you. Like it says, we bend our knees and we bow down and we are grateful. Modim. We are grateful. It's like subservient. Modim. Ella shalamata. That's in the soul of every Jew and it's there constantly. Ella, but shalamata below lefishu tachat zaman, and now it's under time when after a person gets born, the soul comes into the body. It's called apam odeh. Leah said, "This time I will give thanks to God." Right? That's how Yehudah got his name. This time, shelo kol itim shavot. Not all the times are equal. So the essence of the Jewish soul is the awareness of God, the awareness of God, and eventually that's going to be all mankind, the awareness of God. And with this awareness of God, this assumption, this axiom, the obvious fact that we are just creations and that God is creating us, this forms the essence of the Jewish soul. Jewish essence of the Jewish soul, that is, the Jew is always aware that he's being created by God. Just like a normal person should be always aware that he's a person, that he's a human being. He's a human being. He can lapse into being like an animal. People can lapse into all these animalistic, right? The things we saw, the communists in Russia, the Nazis in Germany. We saw how they lapsed into being animals, just killing anybody that was worse than animals. But naturally, a natural human being has an appreciation of that he's a human being, he's not an animal. That's what it should be. Of course, the problem is that if you just try to be what you are, an animal, so you become less than what you are. If your goals are higher, then you can at least be who you really are. So that's supposed to be the job of the Jewish people, is to give everybody this sort of higher goal, to be aware of the Creator all the time. Once you're aware of the Creator, it's like a person is aware that he's a human being. You're aware that you're a human being, so then you can work, you have a family, you have children. As soon as you're not aware you're a human being, you just think about your own desires, whatever, like an animal. So you don't want a family, you don't want to work, you just want to have pleasure. You want to kill other people, who knows what you want to do, but it's not human. That's a human being. A Jew is always aware of God, and he's always thankful to God because he's always aware that God is creating us. I mean, it's a big miracle. That's the basis of Judaism. The whole basis that the world is based on is that we are just creations. Although, but Lamaila, when the soul comes into the body, so it forgets about this. Once in a while, it realizes. That's why he says, Hapam. Now I will give thanks to God. Avalamayla, but above, the source of the soul, the Makar Chutzbah, the Nishmasayim, Him Lamayla Miyazman, the soul is above what's called time. Bisham there, Nikri Yehudah, it's called Yehudah. Yehudah, somebody once said a joke, right? Honesty is the best policy, sometimes. And what do you mean sometimes? Honesty is supposed to be always the best policy. And you're always supposed to be honest. I said, yeah, but you get into the world and you can't always be truthful, and you have to cut corners, and there's pressures, there's difficulties. Not all the times are the same. It's not so. A person should always be honest. He says, but the problem is your true honesty is an eternal principle. But when you come into the time where you don't see anything eternal, so you're honest once in a while, and a Jew is always attached to the Creator of the universe, right? The source of honesty, if you want to call it. But in this world, so there's times yes and times not, right? Times you realize it. Above the time, it's called Yehudah. The Yud, this shows on something that's constant. Like it says in the book of Job, that this is what Job does. And as he always did it constantly, that's the Yud, shows on something that's constant. So the meaning it will be Kamo Yodeh. Yodeh with an extra hey. Yodeh means to give thanks, to how do you say, to surrender, to be grateful. Yodeh also sometimes means to admit that you're wrong, to surrender, like I said, surrender your opinion to some. It says in the Gemara, Yoda Modim Chachamim l'Rabbi Meir, that the everyone they had to surrender their opinion to that of Rabbi Meir, even if they didn't understand. Rabbi Meir was so deep. But Tosfos say As a nichtav, when you add it on, it's written the word yehudah with us. There's another place where it's written yehudah with a segel under the dal, yehudah. That's really clearly meaning giving surrender, yehudah, hodaya. The inyan apam, that what it says, od pam odeh, I know, achar later, this is after he gets born. With the fourth son that was born was Yehudah. So before you want to come to this level of being aware of the Creator, to being connected to a higher truth than what you are. You know you're here, you know you're a human being. Did you know you're being created? Do you know that there's God that's creating you and he cares about you? Do you know this? As soon as you realize it, then you'll feel a sense of surrender, connection to something that's higher than yourself. But in order to come to this, so there's 3 steps that you have to have before. Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Yehudah was the 4th son to be born to Leah. The first 3 were Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. In order to come to this level of awareness of the Creator, connection to a principle that's higher than yourself, to a reality, it's higher than yourself. Like we said, a person is connected to truth. He wants to be truth. He's going to be an honest person. Courage. He wants going to be courageous. Right? Those are good traits, good character traits. But in order to be connected to those good character traits, as you have to sometimes, you work on yourself. Here, the same thing. We're talking about the source of all good character traits, the source of all being, the source of all truth. That's the creator of the universe. When we feel that, we feel how lucky we are to be created, but we also feel how important we are to God. God is creating us personally. We're not just here because of the evolution or by accident. This is after giving birth of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Now we're going to explain the Shem. Now, where is Reuven, Shimon, and Levi in our souls? Because everything in the Torah is inside of us. Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, they are the ones that cause this level of Hodayazu. They're the ones that bring about this awareness of God and this surrender to the truth. That's what it means. That your brothers bring the surrender. The surrender comes through your brothers. Okay, what are we talking about? Let's go there. Let's take Reuven first. Reuven comes from the level of, now we're talking about a relationship to God, right? Relationship to God. The way the world is now, it's a big question in everybody's mind, if there even is such a thing. For a lot of people, it's a certainty that God simply does not exist. That God does not maybe exist in the world to come or something. The Jewish people are supposed to be here. Not just everybody believe in God. Everyone should feel God. Everyone should have a sense, like I said before, that God is creating us. He cares about us. He's the king of the universe. He provides for us. He helps us. And most important, he wants us to be his partners. So that's Reuven. Let's start Reuven. Reuven is seeing God. Reuben, that means to see. This is seeing God. Bechinas riazu. This is what causes hamshacha bechinas ahava. This is what causes a person to love God. Like it says, Penei al yamin. Like it says that the face of the lion is on the right side. What's this talking about? There was the vision of Ezekiel. Remember the vision of Ezekiel? I think also Isaiah also saw, but Ezekiel had this vision. And the vision that he saw the upper worlds. He saw the upper worlds. And what are these upper worlds? These upper worlds are levels of reality that are more true than this physical world. Levels of reality that are much more true. That's what all these other religions are based on. Somebody or someone gets a little shot of these spiritual worlds, and he totally freaks out, and he tells everybody about it, and everybody else freaks out, and they choose this person or whatever to be, and he writes a book or something, and everyone is just going berserk over this book, to the point that if people say your religion is bad, why should we freak out? Let's be normal people. But the fact is that when a person gets a little bit of a glimpse of this greater reality that we're in, the spiritual worlds, so it's a very, very amazing thing. Judaism comes and tells us that all these spiritual worlds are just a step ladder to get us to appreciate the creator of the spiritual worlds. There's a creator, the same creator that creates this spiritual world that all the other religions are based on. That creator also creates me and you. So he's infinitely close to us. He creates us. On the other hand, he's infinitely far from us because he creates all the spiritual worlds. That's why it says when Mashiach comes in, everybody's going to drop all the religions because they'll see the creator who's creating these spiritual levels and revelations, whatever that everybody is freaking out about. And I mean, in a way, it's a good thing. You know, religion is a good thing. Ideally, it's a good thing. It's an awareness that something above you. But like everything else, it can be misused. But essentially, it's a good thing to understand there's something that's above you. It just has to be directed properly. If it's directed properly, then you come to love the creator. That's what it says, that up in the spiritual worlds, there is this manifested, this level of love. It says that in the chariot that Ezekiel saw, that on the right side of the chariot was the face of a lion. The right side always represents love. Right side is love, left side is fear, awe. Right side is what's called chesed, left side is gevurah. So on the right side is a lion. What's a lion? What's a lion doing over there? It says a lion is the same letters as Riyah, seeing. V'chein was also Degel Machane Ruvain Yamina, and also the encampment when the Jewish people traveled in the desert, and also when they camped around the tabernacle in the desert. They wandered around for 40 years in the desert, right? So it says that each tribe had its own camp, had its own place. So the camp of Ruvain was on the right side. Ki inyan Riyah, the whole idea of seeing, that's Riyah, is to come close to God. Derech chiba, in a way of love. Kamosha Katuv, like it says, Ki b'chura te'ena berishita ra'iti avotechem. Like God says, like a first figs, the first fruits. In the beginning, God said, I saw your forefathers. Kamosha Katuv, v'zeu ki ra'a Hashem esan. That Leah said that God has seen me. Ba'ata yaveni ishi. Now my husband will love me. Leah said, I gave birth to a son. Now my husband is going to love me, because Leah was not. Yaakov didn't want to get married to Leah. He thought that it was Rachel. He was tricked. So he said, now I have a son. God will love me. And what's this important to us? It's important to us that seeing God brings love. Seeing God. When you see God, it brings love. What are you supposed to see? It says 3 times a year, the Jewish people would go up to the Holy Temple. They would see God. They would see God, and God would see them. How do you see God? Where are you supposed to look? Behind the clouds, under the rainbow? How do you see God? What does that mean? Okay, so we have to remember that it's not going to be easy. You can't see God with the physical way, because God is creating your eyes. It's like they say that the safest place for a bird to sit from the hunter is on the barrel of the gun, right? It's on the barrel of the gun. The hunter can't shoot at the gun, and the bird and the gun are one. See, no matter where he points, the bird moves with him. The same thing with us. How are we going to see God? We're not separate from God. If we were separate, we could get a perspective of what God is. But we're not separate. God is creating us every single instant from absolutely nothing. How are we supposed to see God? With our eyes. So says the Rebbe, we can see God with our mind. We can see God with our mind. How would it like this? Listen. In the Jewish people is this is what's called looking at the glory of the king. To arouse the love. Until you desire to cling to God. Okay, how do you do this? Let me just say in a very short way. Let's take the first basic thing, right? God is creating me. God is creating me. Right? Do I exist? I exist. Here I am. Right? I'm existing. Okay, that feeling that I exist, that feeling that I'm existing, that I'm here, that feeling is something like the feeling of what God is. God is existence. God creates all existence. That's a very low aspect of God, but nevertheless, that's God. God is this feeling, I exist. I exist. But not the way I feel it in regard to myself, the way I feel it in regard to my creator. There's a creator that's creating me. That creator gave the Torah. I did not give the Torah. That creator took the Jews out of Egypt, right? Abraham realized there's a creator that's creating the sun and the moon, and that also the creator that's creating me. And that creator, he loves me, cares about me. Every human being can feel this. Not only that, you start to look, not only is God creating me, okay, I'm not such a big deal, good, but what about a sunset? Ooh, it's pretty amazing, right? How is it say, what poems are made by fools like me, but only God can make a tree. There's some sort of a poem I remember. There's a poem about a tree. Tree is very beautiful. Look at a tree, all the leaves, all the xylems and the phloems or whatever it is, and I forget the birds sitting in there, and the branches, and it waves, and this, and there's color, and there's smell, and there's this. Pretty amazing, right? And that's just one tree, and how many trees there are? And blades of grass. You ever look at a blade of grass? Amazing, really, truly incredible. Just it can make you cry. You think there's so much life. This is so alive. It's really very great, amazing. How much more so an animal? It's amazing. Now we have to think about there's a creator that creates this. Let's look. This arouses the love. Until you want to cling to him, blessed be he. So it is when we read in Psuki de Zimra. King David, he wrote the book of Psalms. There's a lot of Psalms that praise God. A lot of Psalms. I think the vast majority of them are talking about the terrible problems that King David had, and he's pleading to God to save him from his enemies. But there's a lot of the Psalms that praise God, and these Psalms have been arranged in our prayers in the morning. We praise God. And then there's also prayers which are written by what we call the Anshe Knesset HaGadola, the men of the great assembly. They wrote Yotzer Or, this blessing called Yotzer Or before Kriya Shema, before we say Shema. Why? In order that we should come to love God. Because Shema Yisrael, we say this prayer every day. It's the motto of Judaism. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And then right after that, it says, you should love God with all of your heart, all of your soul, all of your might. It's a commandment to love God. How can you love God if you have no idea what it is? So it says you have to think. The Iker Kavana, the whole, that's how do you think? How do you think? By understanding the words that you're saying in these Psalms that we say before Shema Yisrael, the Psalms. It's called Psuki de Zimra, sentences of song. We praise God. Kilo da, it's not enough be a deal of ado. It's not sufficient just to know that God exists. Lefishuhu bechinas helem, because it's still concealed. Ta'afilu ganva pu machtarta. It says even a thief at the mouth of a tunnel that he dug to go into somebody's house to steal money, he prays to God for success. So he knows that God exists, and it could be that he goes to synagogue and he's a religious Jew, but he's a thief. In the nighttime, he breaks into houses, and he thinks, but what does he do before he breaks into the house? He prays to God. So what's wrong with that? That's good. He says, yeah, but he's stealing. It's against the Torah. He says, come on, be a little bit more positive. You don't have to look at the negative side of everything. He's praying to God. That's good. He said, hey, man, the guy is stealing. He's taking money that people work for hard. Right? How can he do that? He says, listen, one second. He's also working hard. He's not working hard. It's very dangerous to be a thief. Right? He's risking his life. If he gets caught, he's going to get killed. We have to understand the thieves. He says, no. We don't have to understand the thieves. The thieves have to understand God. If the thieves really understood God, then their emotions would not push them to steal from someone. The emotions would not push them to do things that are against the Torah. They would understand that God will provide for them. They have to be honest, and then God will provide for them. The problem is that their heart is not with God. Maybe their mind is, but their heart is with themselves. A thief. And because his heart is with himself, so he justifies the fact that he can do whatever his heart wants. His mind becomes a servant of his heart. It's supposed to be the other way around. It's supposed to be that our heart becomes a servant of our mind. We realize that God exists and we act accordingly. So let's take this person who's the thief. A thief is not like everybody else. I don't know. I mean, not everybody can be a thief. I personally am not a good thief. I'm not a good thief. I have a conscience. My conscience bothers me. I remember once when I had a bunch of bad friends when we were in, not even high school. It was in, what was it called? Junior high school. And I had a bad, rasty friends, and they said, stealing was a good thing. So I stole a few things from a store, a couple of things of gum or something like that, a couple of decks of cards. And I felt so guilty about it afterwards that I went, afterwards, about a year after, I went back and the store had already been sold and it was closed. I still remember that today. But there's some people that are good thieves. A good thief is his conscience doesn't bother him, and he goes and he steals, and he's got to be clever, and he has to be secretive, and he has to be brave, and he has to. So he's got all these good qualities. What is a thief supposed to do to believe in God? What's he supposed to do? He says the guy does believe in God. He prays to God before he steals. He says no. That's not it. It has to be more real. The feeling that God exists and that God will take care of him has to be more real than this feeling and this talent that he has to go and steal. So that's what it means. He has to take it to his heart. It's not enough that it's just in his mind. It has to be in his heart. Us also, right? Maybe we're not thieves, but each one of us has his own little, his own little faults or big faults. If a person just has it in his mind, the awareness of God, then lo yavo l'kiyam ahava. He won't come to actually love God. It has to come from the concealment. It has to be revealed. That he knows that there's God. And then it has to be not only knowing, but also seeing that there's God. Is a revelation, the stakla, that he gazes, davka. In other words, he looks at a house instead of seeing the house. Well, I could steal this house. Look, the window is open up there, right? And thieves, I don't know if you know, but thieves have a sense. They know where money is. Thieves have money. I have experience. Somebody once stole from me money that I had hidden in my house. A little kid, and he just knew where the money was hidden. To this day, I don't know how he knew. Thieves have a sense. He looks at a house instead of thinking this. Well, I know where the money is. He looks at a house and he just thinks, how can I serve Hashem? Maybe a Jew lives here. He should have a mezuzah on his door. How can you really feel that God exists? By speaking the praises of God. And deepening your mind. How it is that God's kingship is the kingship of all the worlds. God is not just the king of the heavens. God is the king of every detail in the world. It says that all the angels, millions and billions, unnumbered camps of angels are all praising him. And all there is God. These are words we're saying from the prayers. That God is alone. He is special and alone. Just like before the world was created. Like we say that God is unique, and create and make the world how God enlivens the world is the fact that he's a king. Kuli. This idea that God is one, is that he's alone, but then we say that another thing, that God is not just unique, God is also one. What does it mean that he's one? It means that despite all the diversity that we see in the world, the fact of the matter is it's all being created by God. That's Aleph, that's the oneness of God. It goes into Echad, that's the word Echad. The oneness of God goes into the chet, into the eight. It says that's called the eight heavens and the earth, and the dal, the four directions of the world. That's called the Zion Rekim, the seven heavens and the earth, and etc. That they will be batelim li yehudah. They're completely negated to God's oneness. That the life force of the heavens and the earth, everything goes back up into its source. What does it mean it goes up into your source? So you see that everything is being created by, there's a creator and he's creating everything. So now you look at a tree, you see a miracle. You look at the sky, you see another miracle. You look at a rock, you see a miracle. Everything is a miracle. Everything is being created by God all the time. Even the spiritual powers, like it says, etc. If so, how is God creating the world? If God is so powerful, wonderful, it says that blessed is the kingship of God forever and ever. That all of the seemingly separate worlds, they are only just from God's kingship. Because when a person thinks about this for a while, when a person thinks about this for a while, in the depth of his mind. What do you mean the depth of your mind? You think, is this really true? I mean, really there's a God and God is really creating me. Is this really so? God is creating everything. You think deeply. Is this really true or not? Maybe it's not. Maybe it is. If it is, well, this is amazing. And you try to feel the fact that the reality of the world is really being created by God. It's not just a religious idea. When a person thinks deeply into that, it's revealed into your mind, and not just knowing the deep down alone. Here he says the word yehudah. Sometimes the word yehudah means connecting in a real way. And here he says yehudah means a vague. It's a vague knowledge. You know that God, of course I know that God exists. They say a story that the first Rebbe of Chabad, when he began his learning, he was an amazing genius, even when he was a small child. He was a genius. When he was like in his 20s, early 20s, so he decided he was going to go and learn. So everybody figured he would go to learn by the Gaon of Vilna, Rabbi Eliyahu of Vilna. He was a tremendous, amazing genius, famous all over the world. And instead, he went to learn by the Maggid of Mezrich, because he said by the Gaon of Vilna, they teach you how to learn Torah, but by the Hasidim, they teach you how to pray. So he went and he came back. His father-in-law was very opposed to him. His father-in-law was one of those who opposed Hasidut very, very vehemently. His father-in-law said, what did you learn? You went over there, you wasted your time by these Hasidim. What did you learn over there? He said, I learned that there's God. I said, you what? So I learned that there's God. There's God. He said, one second. He called the maidservant, a simple Jewish lady. She didn't know how to read. Is there a God who creates the world? She said, God creates the world. That God creates the world. So he said, okay, thanks a lot. You can go. So he said to his father-in-law said to the altar Rebbe, said, see, even this handmaid says, you wasted your time. Even the lady that cleans the floor, she says that God creates the world. The Rebbe said, she says it, but I know it. Know it means it in a deep way, and not just in a superficial way. Here in this mimer, he's using the word yehudah to mean superficial. Okay, that's a little bit unusual. As I then, molid means ahava, when a person thinks in details about God's existence and how God is creating me, He's creating the world, He's creating the upper worlds, then it gives birth to love. Izgalus libo, in the revelation of his heart. Liod nichsav avagam kol sanafshi, like King David said, I'm thirsting, I'm lusting, my soul is desiring you, God. Then you will come to love God, mamash, really. Namely, the dove kabol, to want to cling to God, to the infinite creator. Like it says, Mi li v'shamayim. Who do I have in the heavens? So tomorrow we're going to develop this. Eventually we'll get to yehudah, explaining how that a person can be constantly aware of the Creator, and that really activates us. When a person is, like I said, there's several examples, extreme examples of people that were completely devoted and aware of God all the time. King David was one of them, and Moses was another one of them. They were examples of what happens to a person when he is really connected to God. These two people, they almost never slept. They were always constantly active. King David fighting battles, Moses taking the Jews out of Egypt, receiving the Torah. King David was learning and singing psalms. It says that King David didn't sleep at night. He would only sleep a few minutes. He was so active. A person that feels God is very, very, very dynamic. The spiritual worlds might be calm or whatever, but you have to understand, Judaism, the main thing of Judaism is the world. We're here for the world. We're not here for ourselves. Of course, that's the biggest benefit to ourselves that can be, is when we improve the world, when we give to others. But nevertheless, to be in the world and to improve the world, you have to be very dynamic. And that can only come by means of being very positive, and that can only come by means of loving God. Always being connected to God, as we're going to talk about more, God willing, how to do it tomorrow. Now let's learn the Dvar Malchut. Whoa.